He's definitely one of the biggest, if you know what I mean. Doc Severinsen, Peter Francis.
Wait a second, Doc Severinsen?
Yes.
You went from David Lee Roth to Huey Lewis to Doc Severinsen?
Doc Severinsen was before I met David and Huey Lewis. It was a while back. I was in high school when I met him.
You were in high school?
Yes.
You're 36 years old now?
Right.
You've been doing this since you were how old?
15.
Yeah. By the way, about David Lee Roth, we heard from David Lee Roth, and he denies that whatever you say about David Lee Roth, that you were with him.
That we had a menage a trois in the production office when he was still with Van Halen. And there were witnesses there, the other girl and his bodyguard and the promoter.
Are you proud of this?
Yes, I achieved my goal and to be a famous groupie, and I'm still at it today.
That's a strange goal to have, isn't it?
Not necessarily.
Well, I think a lot of us would think that's kind of strange. I mean, if that's the goal in life, is to go around and try to sleep with as many rock and roll musicians.
But the people who think it's strange are the people who have a hard time getting tickets to the shows.
Well, what was your object? Was your object to meet them or to have sex with them?
Both. It's hard to do one without the other.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I know some rock and rollers.
Well, I mean, if you're going to have sex with them, you've got to meet them.
Yeah. But just because you meet them, do you have to have sex with them?
No, not necessarily.
Have you ever, let me ask you this, have you ever struck up a friendship with a rock and roll musician you didn't have sex with?
Yes, several times.
Who?
Well, the guys in Cinderella, I know them pretty well, and I haven't had sex with them. And the late drummer of Kiss, who passed away recently, he and I were friends, and we never had sex.
How would you have these encounters? In other words, how would you meet them?
I usually go to the show very early in the day and try to look as erotic as I can so that they will know what I'm there for and that I'm willing.
You seem proud of all this, Connie.
I am. I reached my goal, and a lot of people who set goals for themselves in life never reach them. So I feel like I've accomplished what I set out to accomplish.
Very strange, very bizarre.
Not necessarily.
Well, it's bizarre in this way. What is your job in life?
My career?
Yeah.
I'm a substitute teacher in the Little Rock School District.
Now, that's the kind of reaction you get. Do your employers know what you do, as they say, on the side?
Little Rock is a very small town. Yes, they do. So I haven't been called lately to sub very much because I've had so much publicity. But for the last year, it's been really slow. But prior to that, it was every day that they call. And I've had 3 long-term assignments in the Little Rock District.
Now let's get to the AIDS question.
I practice safe sex, even to the point of having oral sex using a condom.
Is that what? Yeah. Well, I guess if you're going to do it, it's better to be safe about it. But have you had an AIDS test?
Yes, lots of them. I can provide them, and I have provided them to the bands and taken the results with me. And I've provided them to the venue in Little Rock.
You started this when you were 15.
Yes.
You're now 36.
Right.
I can understand someone as a late teenager, early 20s, going around being bedazzled by the bands, you know, looking at the rock and rollers and saying, gosh, I wish I could meet them. But you're 36 years old now.
Well, it makes more sense to me now than ever.
Oh, come on.
Because I have made friends after going to see them year after year and tour after tour. I have a lot of friends out there.
You consider them friends?
Yes.
Do they consider you a friend?
Well, they must, because the other night at the Garden, I didn't have any trouble getting in. Friday and Saturday night at the Garden, I didn't have any trouble.
To see whom?
Rush. I had some friends who really went to bat for me and said they wanted me there.
Are you out for pleasure for yourself, or are you out to give pleasure to them?
Both. We're friends.
But don't you feel in the long run you're a very lonely woman? I mean, here you are, you have a brief encounter with them, they leave, you're left back in Little Rock, you're by yourself, you're not married, you don't have a long-term friendship? I mean, a relationship with anyone?
I have a lot of long-term friendships.
But no long-term relationships, do you?
Well, these are all long-term relationships. We talk to each other while they're on the road. I call them and things like that, so we keep in touch.
Do you feel that you're in competition with much younger girls now?
No, not really.
Why?
Because there aren't that many of them really that come around. Now and then there are, but not really. It would depend on the act. There really aren't as many as the bands and would have people in the public to believe.
You think age has done that?
I'm not sure, maybe to some extent, but security has gotten tighter through the years. It's gotten a lot more.
So now
tours have gotten a lot more sophisticated.
It's a big deal if you get a backstage
right.
pass. When we come back, we're going to meet a man who says these groupies are nothing but loose, easy women with no morals. But what about the musicians? What about them? We'll be back. Still to come, we'll find out how this little girl grew up and as an adult tried to take her life.
And died. He left behind an inheritance worth millions to his 9 children. But on the next Entertainment Tonight, meet the son Michael Landon once loved and left out of his will. Sent to foster parents at age 3, Landon's adopted son tells his story and why he's angry about the famous father he never knew.
And I often wondered while he was on his deathbed, did he ever think about me?
Michael Landon's Forgotten Son, the inside story on Entertainment Tonight.
Tonight at 6:30, only on Channel 2.
We're talking about rock groupies and their sexual favors. Joining us now is Jesse Nash, freelance entertainment journalist who's written for over 250 magazines, including Billboard, Rolling Stone. Please welcome him. Nice to have you with us, Jesse.
Thank you.
Before I get to you, I must say, I don't want to be judgmental. I mean, I want to try to hear your story so that we can understand what you're doing, but I don't think maybe you've been able to get it through, and so maybe if I could just follow up on a couple of things. What is it that you get out of it other than notches on your gun, or you can say to your friends that you've been with these people?
Well, like I said, I've been going to these tours for so long and running into the same people year after year that I've developed a lot of friendships over the years. I've got to travel a lot.
Do they pay for your tickets?
Usually, yes.
Well, that's a benefit. Get to see different places.
Right. Traveling, the glamour, the excitement, and a lot of friendships on top of that.
Okay, Jesse, what's wrong with that?
Well, you know, on the surface it sounds fine, but I'll tell you, I'm appalled in one way, and it's a moral issue. My feeling is that how can you feel good about what you're doing? First of all, we have enough problems these days in relationships with men and women to begin with. It doesn't enhance the image of the modern day woman. I don't know how, I mean, this is how I personally feel. I don't know about the women in the audience, but I don't think it adds to their image. And I think
well, wait a second. We've got some objections here,
okay,
right?
Well, how could you say that what she's doing is wrong? Who are you to sit there and say that this is a woman's image or not? I mean, if she was a man, you probably go and pat her on the back because it's another notch on her belt.
But it's not, to be promiscuous in today's society is not a good thing.
She's been promiscuous since she's 15. It's not something she just started.
No, she's been promiscuous, and she's from the age of 15 to the age of 36.
And that's something that she just started. So
no. Since for the last 16 years, she's been promiscuous.
So what's wrong with them? Men are promiscuous since they're 8. I know guys that are still promiscuous.
You know, first of all, she's a teacher. What about setting a standard?
Wait, what she does for her personal life has nothing to do with what she teaches these children.
But understand something. She's on television. This is beyond her personal life.
But let's take it another way. Let's take it Thank you. Let's take it to the other side. What about these guy rockers?
Okay,
I mean, what about them? What about their responsibility?
Nobody's holding a gun.
What about their self-esteem?
Listen, we're not saying the rock stars are innocent either, okay? You got a situation there where a lot of these rock stars send out their roadies to go scouring for groupies.
In the crowd?
Yeah, they bring out pink laminates. There's this thing about pink laminates.
Well, those are passes?
Well, it's an inside understanding.
It's a badge.
It's a little pink laminate pass, so they go looking for groupies. They give the pink laminate, and they go bringing them back, you know, bring them back backstage after the concert.
For a party.
For a party, to meet them, to have sex. Who knows what the reason is, but the motive is
And
that.
this is a known thing that happens?
It's known, not to maybe to the general public, but to the people in the music industry world.
Is it something to have? I mean, this badge is something to
Depends on
wear
who's on the receiving end, you know, I mean.
And I've got quite a collection of them.
But you know, Maury, I stress that, you know, some of these groupies have ruined the lives of these fans. I mean, have ruined the lives of these performers. I mean, I have a story about Jermaine Jackson, all right? Jermaine Jackson did an interview with me about 9 months ago, and he told me how he has had to monitor these groupies, these fans who come to his shows, who send him letters. There's one fan who's been sending him a letter a week for 8 straight years. And one day she changed the pattern of her fan response and sent an audio tape. And on this audio tape, this woman was sitting there being beaten, screaming out, "Save me, Jermaine, help me, Jermaine," while his album was playing on in the background. This is bizarre stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
That is a different form of communication, though, than going to the show and actually...
I think it's the same.
Putting out, for lack of a better word.
But it's the same. One is S&M and one is sex. It's the same thing. I mean, it's still not healthy.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, wait a second, before we stand right up here. This is a friend of yours, Connie, right?
Yes, and her husband is in the business.
That's right. So was I. I worked on the road with a major rock group, a very promiscuous major rock group. And
but are you different than Connie?
well, I worked there. I was the wardrobe person. And I met
Kiss.
Yes, and I worked on the road, and I spoke with all the crew members. And
You're a friend of Connie's?
Through the business, yes.
Well, have you ever said, "Connie, come on, I mean, let's get a life"? I mean, you're 36 now.
I think with Connie's been doing it a long time, and she does it. I know you don't really meet up with the younger bands. You really are with the bands that you've known from many, many years ago.
It's like the 70s bands.
Yeah, she's not with the young
Anybody remember Grand Funk Railroad? Oh, yeah. Great American Band, remember that song? Huh? Right. Connie, Sweet Connie, that's Connie. That's the one they write about.
And she is Sweet Connie. And all the guys on the crew, they don't have anything bad to say about her. They're not saying, "Oh, Connie's coming, we're going to get some." They're just like, "Oh, yeah, I really like Connie." They go to her house. We, invite her to dinner.
So you condone what she's doing?
In Connie's case, yes. A lot of the...
Really?
Yeah, just because it's Connie, and Connie knows what she's doing. Connie has a lot of friends, and I honestly say they're friends of hers because they all say nice things about her.
You know, Connie said before, my goal, I've reached my goal. Isn't the goal a lot bigger than that? Isn't it big business? Isn't it to make money? I mean, you think that you're just doing it to reach a number? I really question your motives here. You know, why go on TV? Why have a Penthouse article? Why have the Daily News write about it? Aren't you out there to make money like the rest of us?
Now I make money through teaching school.
But you haven't been working, so how have you been supporting yourself?
But I have a lawsuit that is in the making, a discrimination lawsuit with the Little Rock School District because of all this.
This is Stacy, right?
Yes.
You would love to be a groupie. This is your mom, Fran, right? Well, wait a second, Fran. I want to save this. We'll be right back. We'll see a little mother-daughter conversation after this. Tomorrow, they held the fate of William Kennedy Smith in their hands. We'll meet the jurors who decided what really went on that night at the Kennedy compound.
If you're hurt in...
Took my nose and she hit my eye.
She ran into my hand. She really did.
She ran into your hand?
Yes.
On the next People's Court, when the bell rang, these folks came out fighting.
Then all of a sudden, this lady pops out of the car, says things in Spanish. "You're crazy, 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 crazy."
But what on earth were they fighting for?
Were you angry?
No, no. Crazy, crazy, crazy. No.
Things get crazy.
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
On the next People's Court.
Today at 4, only on Channel 2.
Do you find yourself tired too often in the morning, during the day at work, at night while it's still early? Let General Nutrition Centers energize you the natural way. With Quick Shot Energy Pack, a powerhouse of energizing nutrients in one easy-to-take pack. All natural invigorating herbs, plus bee pollen, ginseng, and more. Quick Shot for fast energy. For all your health needs, visit General Nutrition today. Your #1 energy source, GNC, naturally.
You like what Connie's doing, don't you, Stacy?
Well, I do, but I don't agree with one thing. I don't agree with sleeping around with all of them. I mean, I like
Maybe some of them?
Well, one in particular, yeah,
Who?
Kip Winger.
Okay.
But,
Here's your mother. She doesn't want you doing that, do you?
I not only don't want her doing it, I think if I thought she was serious about it, I would lock the doors, call the therapist, and Connie, you're a beautiful, attractive lady, and I'd like to know what your family thinks and if you've ever considered some deep insight therapy.
What did you say?
Give me a break. It's therapy. It's a hobby like anything else. It's just
How do you rationalize sleeping around for 20 years of your life as a hobby?
But if this is what she likes doing, that's fine.
But I don't make it my profession. My profession is not sleeping around. Sleeping around is a private thing. Making love is a private matter. It's not a public. It's not a public.
You want to talk to...
Most of what I do sexually is oral in nature. It doesn't quite have the same amount of intimacy as what y'all are thinking.
What kind of childhood did you have?
I had a very good childhood.
Connie, I want to move on because I want to address this because there are a lot of young girls like
Someone has
Stacy.
to set an example.
There was, Winger was on the road with us with Kiss, and I got to say that a lot of times I was up first in the morning because I did the wardrobe. 9 o'clock in the morning, there were 15-year-old girls that their mother shouldn't have let them out of the house. They had stockings and suspenders.
So what were you telling her?
They don't respect these girls. They do talk very, very, very badly about these girls. They give them passes. The guys leave before the girls get back.
And you won't say that about Connie, though?
Not because Connie. Connie's
too street smart? She knows the ropes?
She knows the ropes.
Yeah, but now she's 36, but what happens when she was 15 or 16?
I just want to ask a question. She's 36 years old. She's making money off of maybe something she started out as a lark. And what's wrong with that?
Because there's repercussions. This is called the era of AIDS, my friend. And you don't mess with that. Condom or no, HIV negative or no, there's still an incubation period. Nothing's guaranteed.
I have a hard time understanding why I've never met this gentleman at a show.
Okay.
Hey,
I really do.
I'm very
I'd like
proud
to know,
about my
what
nation.
does your family think about what you're doing?
Well, to tell you the truth, I had a wonderful family, but my father, I'm an only child. I don't have any brothers and sisters. My father passed away in '84. My mother still lives in Little Rock. She stopped speaking to me the day after the funeral, but not because of all this, because of my father's estate. So they knew about it, and they knew as long as I was happy and that this was what I wanted, and they didn't like it, but I was still their daughter, and they still loved me.
Have you ever had a real relationship?
Yes, I was engaged in '83.
And why didn't it happen?
Well,
I mean, I'd have a hard time being engaged to somebody who's so promiscuous.
I am in love with the business. Okay. I'm in love with the business.
I have a beautiful 14-year-old daughter, and I want to tell her what not to do, because I don't want her to end up doing anything like this.
Well, that's your opinion. That's what I say. I'm happy. I'm happy.
Aren't you lonely, though?
Well,
Not at all.
happy doesn't mean everything, does it?
What happens when you want to have that sincerity with somebody? I mean, how do you find that?
Sincerity.
How? How? What? With a rock and roll guy who's on the road all the time?
With all my friends who stick behind
Friend.
me.
What's the definition? What's the definition of
All right,
friend?
Jesse, we're going to go on.
How do you support yourself on a part-time teacher salary?
Well, the cost of living, to tell you the truth, the cost of living isn't very high in Little Rock. It really isn't.
I'd like to know if you were brought up with any kind of religious convictions.
Yes, I was.
Which ones?
Baptist. I was raised a Baptist.
Do you sleep with any normal men instead of rock stars?
What do you mean? Like, are you intimate with any men other than rock stars?
I have been, but it's very few and far between.
You know, I'd also like to bring up something. There was, in a published story in the Daily News, it also talks about group sex, sex with other women. I mean, you know, what's your response to that? That's not normal.
Well, I don't know. Normal, I guess, is in the eyes of the beholder.
Right. Connie, let me ask you this. Do you get the point now that, okay, I am 36. I mean, are you tapering off?
Not really. If anything, I'm speeding up. If anything, I'm speeding up.
What would you tell young girls like Stacy and others like her?
Well, I've met Kip Winger. I'll tell her that. I haven't had sex with Kip, but he's a very nice guy.
So that's a big deal for you to meet Kip Winger.
Not, well, I met him when I was taping a documentary for MTV, so that was an unusual circumstance, the way I met Kip.
All right,
He was in Alice Cooper's band.
And when
at the
you
time.
no longer you feel you're attractive, what's going to happen to you?
Well, you've got to understand how deep these friendships go. Like Eve's husband is a guitar tech for lots of bands, and it's all based on friendship at this point, and a tradition.
Aren't you friendlier with the crews and the roadies than you are the musicians themselves?
Both, really. Okay. Mainly the crews. The crews are who spread my name and who go to bat for me when there are problems and things.
How come you haven't written a book?
I've kept diaries the whole time.
Oh, my gosh, I'm sure there's one coming. Thank you very much, Jesse. Thank you, Connie. It is an eye-opener into the rock world, and there's a lot more than music, as we've seen going on behind the scenes. But with the AIDS epidemic, you know, Connie, it's not just your health. I think there's a whole generation out there.
You can get all the fine details and all the fine points in the January Penthouse. It goes into a lot more detail.
Here comes the plug, right? I think we'll end it there. When we come back, we're going to talk to people who looked death right square in the face and survived after this.